FANSPLAINED, a media criticism podcast with Rian and Em. I'm Rian.
And I'm Em.
This is a special one-off episode, sort of like a bonus, to cover a film we had the great fortune to attend a pre-screening of, Death on the Nile. Death on the Nile is officially out on Friday, February 11th, at least here in the States. And we would like to thank both Disney, or what remains of 20th Century Studios, as well as the Seattle International Film Festival for the opportunity.
Yes. Thank you very much for that. It was a very, very nice experience in a really cute theater.
Yeah, we saw the movie in the Sif Egyptian Theater.
Yes.
This old vintage theater.
It was very fitting for the movie.
It's very cute. It still has the columns and the balcony seating, and it's very cute.
Yes.
It's very adorable and very fitting.
Yes.
So, Death on the Nile, I can't talk today, my goodness. Death on the Nile follows the continued misadventures of a renowned Belgian detective, Hercule Poirot.
Poirot?
I can't say that word.
Hercule Poirot?
Poirot. As he enjoys, quote, unquote, an Egyptian vacation with a cruise along the Nile as part of a traveling wedding party. As every vacation with Poirot tends to, this idyllic trip along the landscape turns into the hunt for a murderer, cutting the honeymoon and tag-along party short. Poirot must discover the lengths love sends people to and what the worth of it truly is. Kenneth Branagh returns to direct Death on the Nile as he had with the prior film in this Agatha Christie adaptation series, Murder on the Orient Express, in 2017. And we hadn't seen either of them, so we watched Murder on the Orient Express last night to prep for this tonight.
And it was very, very good. It was far better than I was expecting it to be, because I have been watching the David Suchet Poirot series for years now, and I saw his version of Murder on the Orient Express, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I mean, David Suchet is the best Poirot. There's no way that this is going to be the same or as good. But no, it was actually very, very well made, and we enjoyed it a lot. We actually teared up a bit at one point.
Mm-hmm. Accompanying Branagh on this journey is screenwriter Michael Green, and he did screenwriting for both films. So he did
Yes.
Murder on the Orient Express and Death on the Nile.
Yes.
Branagh works a lot with the same people across both films, and we'll get to some of those later. Not all of them return, but a good portion of these people either worked on both films with him or they have worked with him before.
Yeah, he knows who he likes, and he knows who he works well with, and it shows in a lot of his films.
And the thing I find really interesting, actually, is how many oddball casting choices, and again, we'll get to the cast on Death on the Nile in a minute, but in general, just the oddball casting choices across the entire ensemble, and how he can bring that together in a way where I would not expect certain actors that he chooses to be able to do these roles.
I mean, he was doing that all the way back when he first made Hamlet. Because if you look at that cast, there's a lot of people in it that no one thought, oh, why are they in Hamlet? Why are they in a Shakespeare film? Because Jack Lemmon was one of the gravediggers or guards, I think, and he was like, there's something rotten in the state of Denmark.
Oh, it's been a really long time since I've seen that, so I really only remember, like, the core cast.
Like, Robin Williams was in it. What's his name? Gerard Depardieu was in it.
Who was Robin Williams in Hamlet?
Oh, he was someone. It's been years since I've seen it. Kate Winslet.
I'll look it up.
Kate Winslet was Ophelia. You had Glenn Close as.
Nope, that's the other movie.
That's the Franco Zeffirelli version.
That's the one I don't like.
I liked parts of that, but Kenneth Branagh's version was not only based on the complete full play of Hamlet, which is why it's so long, and every time you see it in the video store,
every time some random like officer guy,
yeah,
Osric or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
I
every
totally
time-
forgot that.
Every time you'd see it in the video store, you'd see Hamlet in, like, the 2-disc box set. No, 2-cassette box set.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how I watched it at school, and then I found it on DVD later.
Yeah,
and
it was
since.
it was
I
based.
just don't watch it.
It was like the only adaptation to ever do the whole play, and the cast was massive. It was full of all of these stars, and then you had all of these extras. Yeah,
the look of it was so stunning, and I remember that in comparison to a lot of Shakespeare movies, at least at the time. I've studied a lot of it, so I've seen a lot of Shakespeare adaptations over the years.
I mean, he's been making some really bizarre casting choices through a lot of his films, but he somehow manages to make them work.
Yeah. The one that surprised me the most, honestly, with Murder on the Orient Express at least, was Willem Dafoe.
Yes. As
much as I love Willem Dafoe, there are certain roles that I expect him to be in. This was not one of them.
I'm something of a detective myself.
We kept saying it, and he shows up and he's posing as a scientist, and I'm immediately like, I'm something of a scientist myself, and I'm like, oh my god, they did it! They did it, and they did it before Spider-Man did it.
They did.
Well, after the first Spider, you get what I mean. They did it before No Way Home did it.
Well, I mean, no. If you see Willem Dafoe's been good in other period movies. Like,
I agree. He's a fine actor. I'm just
like, you've never seen him in Shadow of the Vampire.
No, there are just certain
God.
I have just seen him in enough that there are certain things that I expect him to do more often. This was not one of them.
No, you're expecting to live and die in L.A., Willem Dafoe.
Yes.
When you have not seen Shadow of the Vampire, Willem Dafoe.
No, I have not.
That's why you need to watch more of his period films. And then
I
you'll
need to make a point of that.
understand.
Yes.
But, like, hell, Kenneth Branagh directed that Frankenstein movie, didn't he? Where he literally cast Robert De Niro as the monster.
He made that one?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That's why it was like this melodramatic, over-the-top fever dream. And he just kept using all the fisheye lenses there.
Okay, I love that he does this, though. Well, and that's funny, and we'll get to this when we get to our Thor episode in a couple episodes from now, because they filmed Thor with, like, very specific lens types as well.
Yeah. Yeah, he does that.
And the interesting thing about Murder on the Orient Express is it was one of the only films in 2017 beyond... Was it Dunkirk?
Yeah, it was Dunkirk.
That used 65 millimeter film?
Yeah, because he was in Dunkirk, and then after doing
and borrowed
that,
it. Yeah. And then did it, and they were the only films that had done it.
I'm something of a filmmaker myself.
Thanks, Kenneth. I mean, he is, though, and I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it, and I love that he can just pull in all these huge casts, because he's just like, I'm an actor and a director, come be in my movie.
I mean, that's we'll get to it more in the acting section, but what I've loved about Murder on the Orient Express and Death on the Nile is that with these big casts that he gets, pretty much every person gets, a good scene for their character.
Yeah.
He manages to make sure everyone gets that, that's their character scene.
I would argue that Murder on the Orient Express did that a little bit better.
Oh.
But because there are some characters in Death on the Nile, and we talked about this on the way home, and we'll get to that in a minute, but there are some characters in this one that I feel didn't quite get the nod they deserved, but for the most part, that's still true.
They didn't get as much screen time.
Yeah, for the most part, it's still true.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think they seem like the same movie. They do a lot of the same stuff, which you can see.
There's a consistency.
Yeah, which you can see in the cinematography. So Death on the Nile is the continuation of the larger universe introduced to us in Murder on the Orient Express.
An Agatha Christie Cinematic Universe, yes.
Even though the end of Murder on the Orient Express sets up Death on the Nile, and you can tell that they did that straight up as just a title drop.
Yeah.
Because it does not actually connect to how Death
No,
on the Nile
it
actually
doesn't.
opens.
It
at
really,
all.
no.
At all. Which threw me off for about 0.5 seconds because I didn't actually care. I was just curious as to whether or not it was actually going to open the same way.
Yeah.
Or if they were just going to kind of retcon them doing that at the end of the other movie. They kind of retconned it, which is fine. This
Yes.
one did not include a title drop for the next one, so we don't know if there's going to be another one.
I hope
And
there
if
will
there
be.
is, as much as we hope there will be one, we don't have a clue what that's going to be,
No.
like we did with this one.
It'll be a surprise.
Despite this being a sequel, this movie also it really can largely stand on its own, even though a few characters return and you have continued themes from the first to the second film.
Yeah.
But the things that returned, a lot of like the story beats, especially Poirot's backstory, are not only like brought back up, but they're expanded on, and they're expanded on in a way where like we could have watched this without Murder on the Orient Express and would have understood it just fine.
Yeah.
Would have been a complete experience on its own. Wouldn't have needed to know anything about that previous movie.
Yeah, that's kind of how the TV show worked. That's kind of how the books tend to work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you will have, like, callbacks to other characters, but largely you can just jump in whenever and follow with that story.
There aren't many returning characters beyond Poirot, his lost love, once fiancé,
Yeah.
and
Catherine.
his friend Bogue.
Catherine.
Let's see, where was I? Also working with Branagh across both Agatha Christie Cinematic Universe films is cinematographer Harris Zambar-Lukos, who also has a long history of working with Branagh, and we'll bring this up in a couple episodes, but he's worked with Branagh on Thor, Sleuth, Jack Ryan, Shadow Recruit, Cinderella, Murder on the Orient Express, and Belfast. Zambar-Lukos has also served as a cinematographer on Mamma Mia.
Oh, God.
Which, to be fair, I love the look of the Mamma Mia movie. It is gorgeous. It's stunning. It looks like Grease. It's vibrant. There's color in it everywhere. It's gorgeous.
Well, you have him to thank for that.
Yeah, well, and all of Branagh's movies look like this.
Yeah.
And I feel kind of like Thor was really like him bringing that Hamlet feel into the MCU, which again I'll get into later. We're not going to get into that in this episode, but the shared like wintry.
Well, he also just brought a kind of Shakespearean vibe to it, which I felt the story actually did deserve with Asgard, at least in the beginning.
Yeah, we'll get to that more though, so that we don't ruin the entire Thor episode in an episode that's not about Thor. But working with the same cinematographer across not only both films here, but a good portion of his directing career, helps provide a visual consistency. So together, Branagh and Zambar-Lukos have begun to establish a style that's used very specifically for this universe.
Yes.
And we'll revisit this when we do Thor to see if there's things that they share from there to Thor. But at least between these two movies, you can see that they share a lot of very specific framing, a lot of very specific uses of tracking shots, and this movie went nuts with tracking shots, and it's my favorite thing in the world. I love them to death, and it just served everything to me. The whole opening was a tracking shot. It was beautiful, and it was Branagh doing 1917, and it was gorgeous, and I wanted to die. I loved it to death. But they also do, like, specific framing. They like to do this thing where they film characters through panes on windows.
In glass.
So that you get, like, this weird mirrored image that kind of makes the characters look duplicitous just by how you're framing them.
Yeah,
because you see, like, the double, triple, quadruple sides of people. Just... And it isn't overstated. I just really like the visual key of that to clue you into there's more behind these people than what you're seeing. You just have to find it.
As with most Agatha Christie characters.
I really loved it. But you also have reused color schemes. We noticed this with Murder on the Orient Express, the way that it ends. You see this landscape that's made of all these purples and oranges, and it looks exactly like the promo color schemes that they used for Death on the Nile.
Yep.
It looked like they were leading
Like,
straight into that film.
Like, the whole Murder on the Orient Express, it starts out with, like, some yellows and all that, because it starts out, in Istanbul, I think.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then, for most of the movie, you have it, like, these dark, warm tones, but a lot of blue, a lot of white, a lot of cold colors.
It looks...
And then
very much like the snow that they're in.
And then at the very end, you see the purples, the orange, the yellows. It's literally, like, in the background, and it's literally feels like a foreshadowing of him going to Egypt.
Mm-hmm. And Egypt is filmed very much like that, and I'm very happy with how vibrant it is.
It was incredibly
It's not portrayed
vibrant.
the way that, like, a lot of Middle Eastern or Latin countries tend to be, where they tend to be very washed in yellow filters or brown filters.
This had greens and blues.
It was
and
gorgeous.
It was very, very pretty.
I didn't notice the CGI stuff with this one near as much as I did with the Murder on the Orient Express, only because some of those mountain shots, when they try and do the outdoors, the CGI is a little obvious sometimes. I don't hate it. It's still fine. But I feel like the setting in this one felt a little more organic to me.
Well, I think it also helped that they included a lot of wildlife shots.
Yes.
Like, you literally have this big alligator just jump up and eat a crane.
Well, and then there was the fish that ate the other fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He included random scenes of the wildlife. You had, like, farmers and other people just, like, kind of
hanging out on the Nile.
Yeah, just bathing in the water or playing in the water. Mm-hmm. And I feel all of that combined with the very vibrant colors, which I cannot stress enough how nice it is to actually see a movie have all this color and vibrancy, and it genuinely doesn't try to, like, make it dull or too dark. You can see everything.
It's only dull when they're in very specific places. Like, when they're in London, things look dull, but it's supposed to.
Like, it's supposed to look dark and dank because it's London. Mm-hmm. But even when they're, like, in some ruins, it's all very... it's shadowy and dark. You can see
everything. Even when there's a sandstorm, you can see everything.
When it's, like... the shadows are very contrasted, but you also have the light. That's the thing about Brenna, that you don't have to like a lot of his acting choices or any of that stuff, but you have to admit the guy knows what he's doing with a camera. He knows how to frame a scene. He knows how to shoot a scene. He's always having the camera move, or even if it's not moving, like side to side, character to character, or up above him or below him.
He really likes the extreme angles in these movies too. He will do a lot of from top down.
He knows
and this one did a lot of, like, from bottom up on a certain, like, because I remember, like, this ceiling behind one of the characters when they're interrogating him, and I loved it.
Yeah, and he also has them, like, the camera go around while he's walking around the character. Mm-hmm. He knows how to correctly use a Dutch angle, which is something that we're constantly
angry about.
We're constantly angry about the misuse of Dutch angles, and we're constantly on the lookout for those directors who know how to use it correctly.
Well, this is why I really like the style that he and Zembar Lukos have kind of created for these films. Mm-hmm. I remember when we were watching Murder on the Orient Express last night, and they do that first top-down angle where they're moving down the hallway and going into Johnny Depp's character's room, and I was, like, screaming. I was so in love with the shot.
Because it's literally all...
it was perfect.
Yeah, it was all shown from the top. You see their heads, and you look down and seeing basically, like, what an omniscient...
Yeah, the last time I remember seeing something like that, I feel like part of that really long tracking shot in Kill Bill does some of that.
Some of it does, yeah.
Not the whole thing, but there's a part of it like that. And I really, really enjoy that because they do these extreme angles to avoid overusing the very appropriate Dutch angles. Yes. And you would not be able to sell the moments in the Dutch angles if you were overusing them for everything that was weird.
Yeah, no.
It'd be like, character says something odd, Dutch angle.
Yeah,
character says something odd, Dutch angle, and there's like 10 characters, you'd be doing it way too often.
Yeah, if you abuse it, you completely take out what makes it special. And even in the scenes where he's stationary with the camera, the way it's placed and the way the scene plays out, like wide shots or close-ups, it's still engaging. It's never really boring.
Yeah, I don't feel like he misuses close-ups like some recent movies have done. Twilight. I guess that's not really that recent, but you get what I mean. That is
not recent at
all.
You
get what I mean. You get what I mean. That one is an abuse of close-up shots.
I think Ari Aster has also done the above tracking shots. He also likes to do the upside down and then write it. There's also that trailer for Malignant. Yes.
It did stuff like that too, and I was screaming because I loved it.
That's James Wan.
Yeah, but so I remember that.
So there are younger directors who know what they're doing too, and I am pleased to see that Kenneth Branagh hasn't lost any of his touch with that sort of thing. But if anything, I feel like he's only kind of improved as a director.
I fully expected to kind of be bored by the first one we were watching last night. I didn't really know what to expect. I put it off.
She didn't know. Yeah, she didn't know the story.
No, I put it off for years because I was just like, okay, it's some kind of murder movie. Okay, great, whatever. Just put it off and put it off and put it off.
It is the murder movie.
Okay, but I didn't care at the time.
Well, you do now.
I do now. So Paco Delgado does the costumes in this movie also, and everything looks very period appropriate. I really love all of Gal Gadot's dresses, like that one that she walks in at the beginning of the movie, the silver one. I was just like, yes, girl, I would just stop and stare at you as you walked into a room. My God,
that silver dress was so good.
Had this very like don't put baby in the corner
yes.
moment when she was dancing with Armie Hammer.
Which, let me tell you, that opening scene of dancing was some of the raunchiest period dancing I've ever seen.
Both with Emma and Gal. Both of those dance scenes were really
raunchy. I thought they were going to just, like, segue into a sex scene.
I thought the same when they were in the ruins. I was like, are we going to get to a sex scene in this PG-13 movie? What is happening?
Like, oh. My.
It was getting really spicy, because the first one was not that spicy.
30s sex scene.
Ooh, my goodness.
Yeah, the other one is not supposed to be spicy. This one, however,
this one was pretty spicy.
This one was pretty, not just spicy, but I could definitely see that the tone was very different.
Oh, yes.
In Murder on the Orient Express, you understand, like, the more pieces you have to that story, you understand exactly where the characters are coming from.
100%.
It feels more somber, but also very emotionally resonant.
Yeah, this one, because we sat and sobbed through, like, the last 30 minutes of the movie.
This one
almost got me in one moment toward the end. I'm not sure I want to spoil it for people because it's not even out yet, but there is one moment at the end that actually got me. But for the most part, like, it doesn't hit the same way.
No.
I do still buy the motivations, but I was also able to call the motivations pretty early on. And I don't know anything about either of these stories. I genuinely did not understand what was going on with Murder on the Orient Express until the end.
Yeah.
This one I kind of called pretty early.
I think it's because with that one, like I said, the whole motive behind it is very different.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel nearly the same as what you get in Death on the Nile. Death on the Nile is kind of just like a scandalous, torrid love affair type of thing, whereas Murder on the Orient Express
everyone's in love with her, but everyone hates her.
Because of money.
Because of money.
Meanwhile,
no one's your friend because of money.
Meanwhile, in the other movie, it's carrying out justice and trying to find closure and redemption, and it's very different tonally.
Yeah, yes it is, absolutely.
And I appreciate that it is. I appreciate that neither movie is like the other.
But you still have that really underlying emotional impact with this one as well. It's just a different emotional impact. But Delgado's other costume work includes Les Mis and The Danish Girl, both of which got Oscar nominations, deservedly. He's also done Split and Glass, both of them.
Well, I really liked Split. I have not seen Glass yet.
He did Ava DuVernay's Wrinkle in Time, which when we went to the exhibit that did all the Disney costumes at the Museum of Popular Culture last year, I have not seen that movie. I never really had a whole lot of interest in watching that movie, but the costume work is very detailed. It's gorgeous. It's vibrant. It may not necessarily be my thing. I don't know. It's not my movie either, though. But, like, I could see the care and the dedication and everything that had gone into those costumes. They were phenomenal.
Yeah.
But the other thing that this guy did was cats. That cats.
Well, I mean, you got some hits and you got some misses.
Yeah, and that's the one.
Also,
that's the one. Cats.
Also, what costumes? They're cats.
They were all in bodysuits. I know. It was all CGI. I don't know.
I am confusion. That's
probably because they had costumes before they decided to CGI everything.
Including the buttholes.
Oh, God, don't remind me.
I will remind everybody.
I hate
if I have to live with that memory, everybody else has to as well.
I hate it. So this film was also filmed at Longcross Studios in London and on location in Morocco. This was contrary to early reports of being filmed in Aswan, Egypt, which I originally thought was the case because I'd looked it up on IMDb prior to doing my notes and looking it also up on Wikipedia, so both of them have some little bits of information that are wrong and they just need to kind of combine their info. But I went and looked at it and they're like, yeah, this was filmed in Egypt. And then I went and looked it up elsewhere and they're like, no, this was not filmed in Egypt. It's fine. The parts that are filmed in Morocco are gorgeous and I'm very there for it.
How dare you expect IMDb to be accurate with anything?
Okay, but how was Wikipedia more accurate? IMDb is supposed to have the actual credits.
I don't know, I guess.
Whatever.
Because I guess Wikipedia has a more dedicated base of editors.
But Wikipedia also still listed, like, people who were on the cast who were not in the movie that aren't on IMDb, so... Who knows? Because I spent a long time trying to figure out who their, like, lingering person was. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I was very confused. Anyway, so getting back to the cast and the acting, though, speaking of. Death on the Nile has Branagh returning as Hercule Poirot, as well as Tom Bateman back as his lovable friend Boke. The film also stars Annette Bening as Boke's mother, Euphemia. Euphemia? I think that's how you say that.
Euphemia.
Gal Gadot is Lynette Ridgway, the bride-to-be. Armie Hammer is Simon Doyle, the high-demand groom-to-be. And Emma Mackey is Jacqueline de Belfort. I assume that's how you say that?
Yeah, I think so.
Would leave off the T, because the French like to do that. Simon's former fiancé and old friend of Lynette. We're also introduced to Letitia Wright as Rosalie Otterborn, manager to her jazz singer aunt Salome Otterborn, played by Sophie Okonedo. I am sorry if I butchered the pronunciation of that, but I think that's how you say that. Russell Brand plays Linus Windlesham, a doctor and former fiancé of Lynette's. Lynette's cousin and financial manager, Andrew Ketchadorian, is played by Ali Fazal. I am so sorry, Ali Fazal. I can't talk. But the minute I found out that that's what his name was, I just flashed back to the most popular girls in school, and I was just like, Ashley Ketchadorian! Why weren't you watching The Door? Andrew Ketchadorian! Why were you not watching Lynette's Door? Just ridiculous.
The minute that Poirot was like, Ketchadorian, I'm like, oh, he said it! Because I remembered it too. You made me watch the whole show.
Yes, Ashley Ketchadorian.
And that's all I can think about now.
God bless that YouTube series. It's my favorite thing on the planet. Jennifer Saunders shows up as Lynette's godmother, Marie Van Schuyler, communist rhetoric in tow. So she's a socialite turned into a
socialist?
Supposed socialist. Supposed. And I did not expect something as serious from Jennifer Saunders when I'm used to Jennifer Saunders from Ab Fab, which is a thing I cannot watch modernly because some of the politics of that show did not age well. Not here or there. I was just surprised to see her in something like more serious and emotional and caring about her in that role, because I really don't like her in Ab Fab. She's a terrible mother.
I mean, the same can be said about Dawn French's character.
Yes. Van Skyler's valet and companion, Mrs. Bowers, is played by Dawn French.
Who starred in the Vicar of Dibley TV show, which is one that I highly recommend, because she plays a female vicar in that, going to a sleepy little English countryside village and shakes it up, and it is very endearing, it's very sweet, and it's very funny, and I highly recommend it. FYI.
That's very cute.
Yes.
And then finally, we round out the main cast with Rose Leslie as Louise Bourget, who is Lynette's assistant/maid.
Poor Rose Leslie.
Poor Rose Leslie.
She deserved so much better.
Rose Leslie is the character I feel like did not quite get the nod in this movie
that she should have.
That everyone else at least kind of did. I feel like we dug into the characters a little deeper with Murder on the Orient Express than we did this one.
Yeah, but
which is by nature because that story is a lot more complex and personal to those characters.
Yes.
But I do wish that we'd kind of dug into a couple of these people a little bit more than we did. Louise being one of them.
It also feels like a lot of those characters had more emotional depth than these ones did. These ones feel just kind of...
They were just like
They were super emotional, but also pissy at the same time.
Yeah, well, they were just kind of there as like your token, this is the godmother. This is the godmother's attendant. This is the financial manager who's shady and stealing money. This is the husband who is double timing maybe. This is the jilted woman who keeps stalking them. Yeah. You know, like it just... To be fair, though, I think I called this early because I don't even know if I'm gonna spoil stuff, but there are things in other movies that some of these actors have been in that reminded me visually of some of the cues that this movie makes pretty early on, and I'm like, yep, that's a thing that I'm gonna remember later.
Also the fact that Jacqueline's character shows up in a red dress at one point.
Oh my god.
With the gold on there, I'm like, that's some Wonder Woman looking.
Oh yes, that gold embroidery on the straps and the bust. Oh, that dress was gorgeous. That scene walking up the steps where you see the fabric of the train just like
rippling up
the steps as we introduce this jilted ex-friend.
A woman scorned.
My god, I feel like I'm in the part of Rebecca I wish had been in Rebecca. To be fair, I did actually really enjoy Armie Hammer's version of Rebecca with Lily James.
Because you haven't watched the Hitchcock version.
I'm sure I will also enjoy it, but I did really enjoy the new Rebecca that everyone clowned on. I thought it was fine. So if you want to discount my opinion on things because I enjoyed Rebecca, that's fine. It's fine. Whatever. We also see short but no less effective appearances from Orlando Seal as Captain Renz, Capitan. And Susanna Fielding as Catherine, who is Poirot's lost love.
Catherine.
So, funny story, actually, because this film has been delayed like a bajillion times thanks COVID. Initially, when they were announcing a lot of the cast for this, like early in 2019, Jodie Comer was actually attached to the film. I don't know as who.
Oh.
Could have possibly been Gal Gadot's role. I'm not positive, though.
Maybe. Or
it could have been Emma's. I'm not positive whose role it actually was, but those are the two that I think I would benchmark the quickest. But by September, she had exited when they revealed the rest of the cast about that time. The funny part is that Ridley Scott is one of the multiple producers of this and Murder on the Orient Express, and Jodie Comer made like her big entrance into big films or whatever with The Last Duel that came out last year.
Yeah.
Ridley.
We haven't gotten to that film yet.
Ridley, do we need to have a talk about sniping actors from Kenneth Branagh? I don't know if that's what happened. I just think that the coincidence is kind of funny considering that Ridley Scott put up a lot of money for this film.
Yeah, and
like he did the last one.
Which I was surprised, actually, to see that. Because I know what his logo looks like when the movie opens. I know what the Scott Free thing is. And I was surprised, actually, to see him a part of those.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because for the last couple films he's done in general haven't really done that well.
Which is unfortunate because House of Gucci was phenomenal. It's not the movie we're talking about.
House of Gucci was bravo. Mwah.
Gucci.
It was Gucci.
It was Gucci.
It was very Gucci.
But overall, I think the acting was fine for the most part. There is like this really odd part toward the end where you get this reaction from Annette Bening.
Yeah.
That I don't know if it was just edited weird, it was acted weird, it was just directed oddly, I don't know. But there's this reaction shot that you get of her at the end that is not supposed to be funny, but the entire theater laughed.
Yeah, the entire theater was laughing at
because her
reaction.
reaction was just very over the top and awkward for the moment.
It was very over the top, but I don't know.
But it was supposed to be really emotional, and I don't know whose fault this was, but it was so weird.
I don't know why everybody was laughing.
I'm supposed to be sad right now. Why is everyone, including me, laughing at this right now?
I don't
know. Because it's not funny.
I don't know why everyone was laughing. That was so weird.
I don't know if we were all just, like, collectively laughing out of, like, discomfort. We could have been. I don't know.
Or maybe everyone else in the room knew what, the twist was and they weren't surprised or they knew what was coming. I don't know.
No, because it was right at the end. We already knew everything.
No, we didn't know the very end, however.
Okay, well, that's fair, but for the most part, we knew things by that point. It was just very weird. I just remember it coming off as odd because for the most part, like, I had no other problems with Annette Bening. Yeah. I loved her in this movie.
Yeah, Annette Bening was really good in this movie.
I loved her taking Poirot to task for everything, just reading him left and right. I loved it. Her and Sophie, both of those actresses were just reading Branagh left and right. Just pinballing Poirot back and forth between these two women.
Just reading him for filth.
I loved it.
I mean, I think it was...
But that moment was just...
I think it was probably just because it was, kind of over the top. And
it was just a little too much for the moment.
Because her acting the rest of the time was great.
Yeah, it was fine. I don't really have any issues with, like, anybody's acting for the most part. I was actually really impressed by Russell Brand being able to, like,
he was very
rein it in.
Yeah, he was very reserved. He was actually a very serious role for him.
It really felt like Willem Dafoe, where I was like, he was, and I know that he can, it's just one of those things where it's like, I'm more used to the over-the-top or the comedy parts, that I don't expect necessarily the more reserved dramatic stuff.
Yeah.
I was really surprised by both of them, but I was surprised by Russell Brand in a similar way. Yeah, probably a little bit more, because I more associate him with slapstick than anything.
Yeah, he wasn't actually doing any comedic anything. Everyone else had, like, the jokes and stuff. His character was very not like that.
Very serious. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
I think he had, like, a moment when they introduced him a little bit, but it was just kind of levity. It wasn't, like, funny.
Yeah. Rose Leslie, I was actually very impressed by her French accent.
She deserved more in the movie.
Yeah,
she deserved more of a part.
She deserved more of a part, but I really, considering how we've seen her in Game of Thrones, considering her natural accent,
I was nothing Jon Snow.
Yeah, I was very impressed by her French accent. Mm-hmm. I couldn't.
The one accent that actually threw me off was Letitia Wright's, because I did not expect that to come out of her mouth.
Yeah,
it was fine. I didn't hate it. It was just, it threw me off a little bit, probably because I'm so used to seeing her in Black Panther, and I'm used to these Wakandan accents. Doing, like, this jazzy, American-esque kind of thing, really surprised me.
For a Southern accent, both of them were pretty solid. They weren't, like... I didn't really hear a slip in their accents, because I know...
and you'd be the expert on that.
Well, I mean, yeah, I am originally from the South, and
you get so mad about bad Southern accents.
I do, because I can tell when they're over the top or over exaggerated, and it sucks because it just sounds stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds hokey. And I'm just like, you guys are capable. The good actors who can pull off accents, they know how to actually do it. They have done it. It is something that people are capable of. And I think, they did a good job because it wasn't too over the top. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like that southern drawl.
Oh, God.
That over the top twang shit.
I mean, to be fair, they pull that. Daniel Craig kind of does that in Knives Out, but I find it really endearing.
He's the exception because
his leghorn is hilarious.
I actually really liked his accent because it was endearing for his character. It wasn't just, him playing a redneck or some shit. It was him actually... honestly, he kind of sounded like the male version of Blanche Dubois.
Oh my god, yeah, he kind of does.
or even Blanche Devereaux from Golden Girls over there. Yes. I think that's why I liked it. But yeah, their southern accents were fine to me. I think they did really good. I really liked their characters. I actually really liked Gal Gadot in this because I feel like she actually showed a lot more emotional range than I've seen her do before.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she wasn't saddled with being in a DC superhero movie. As much as I love the first Wonder Woman, the other movies do not do Diana all that kind.
No.
To be fair.
And I think she had a better opportunity to kind of flex her acting muscles in this.
Yeah, I really enjoyed her in this a lot.
Yeah, it felt like when she had those moments of talking to Poirot by himself, it felt very sincere. It felt genuine.
She's like crying at him. Like, I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Like, you could actually feel...
you could feel comparison to Armie Hammer's over the top, just, like, sobbing.
It was so good.
I loved it so much. I'm like, boy, sell it. Sell it.
You chew that scenery up. Do it.
I thought that the actors were having a hell of a lot of fun with this, and you could kind of tell. Especially when they'd have, like, these really over-the-top moments. It's like you'd have, like, these fights that'd break out between people, and they're all screaming at each other.
And like, throwing each other on the floor.
Shooting each other.
Throwing stuff around and breaking things, and just...
Not even the first one, where everyone hated the dude that got murdered. They weren't even like this.
It was the heat. The heat got to them.
The heat got to them.
The Egyptian
I'm
heat.
so warm. You're in Egypt.
Like, oh, I'm running a fever. I'm like, you're hot because you're in Egypt.
Yeah, I loved it. I also thought that both of them really, but this one especially, I think expanded on it a little, but a lot of the representation in these movies is actually a lot better than I expect it to be. It's not perfect, but again, you're also adapting really old books that have kind of dated opinions, and their period pieces, which are also going to have dated opinions.
Yeah, I haven't read Death on the Nile yet, but I will be reading it to see just how, what they've changed, what they didn't change.
But yeah, I appreciate the emphasis on the Black experience, the emphasis on, especially in this one, at least. The first one, not quite as much, but
they do
this one
touch
for
on
sure.
it.
They touch on it a little bit, but they touch on it more in this one.
Yeah.
The emphasis on interracial relationships in both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Loved it.
Yes. We actually got a queer couple.
Yeah, we actually got a queer couple in this movie as well.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't overdone. It wasn't done just to get your token kiss in the background, Star Wars.
No, it was actually very heartful. It felt genuine.
I was like grabbing your arm when we were in the theater. I was like, oh my god, they're doing this. Oh my god, they're doing this. Like, oh my god, they're doing
like you were audibly gasping.
I was so excited. I was like, like I was with the first movie when we were at home and I was allowed to do that.
Yeah, she
just gasping through the whole last end of it.
Through the third act.
The third act, I was just like...
She was just constantly gasping. I'm over here knowing what's gonna happen, knowing what's gonna be revealed, just keeping my mouth shut, watching her reaction to this, and it was so funny.
Oh my god. But I definitely had a similar moment with this movie. It's just that I kind of called the end, so I didn't have that moment with the end. It was mostly just...
But also, as an aside, this is why I want you to watch more of the Jeremy Brett Sherlock Holmes stuff, because they actually they include more queer stuff in there, too.
Oh my goodness! Yes!
Mm-hmm.
Yes!
Which is what I like about some of these more modern adaptations, because they include that, because guess what? Queer people did exist in these times.
Yes.
They did. They were there.
So
it's just nice to have that inclusion.
Yeah, it is. I was actually really surprised by it. I did not expect it. For as much as it's like, okay, we're doing the interracial thing again. Okay, I enjoy this. This is good. I appreciate that we keep bringing this up. Good. Mm-hmm. Good. I straight up did not expect them to pull the queer rep on me mid-movie.
Yes,
I was
they
like,
did.
no, my god.
Yes, they did.
That was the most surprising part of the film for me.
But
it wasn't
was
the ending, it wasn't the story, it was straight up that reveal.
But also it was very sweet.
I was so happy that they did it, because you could actually kind of see it.
Yeah.
Once they revealed it, I was like...
That makes all of it
okay, everything makes sense now, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
So, the music for Death on the Nile is composed by Patrick Doyle, who also returned from Murder on the Orient Express, and who is also a frequent collaborator with Branagh.
Patrick Doyle is great. That's it. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Yes. My only issue with this one, other than the fact that we were in an older theater and sometimes the sound is not as crisp as it is when you're seeing it in a theater that does everything digitally, where it's very clear and concise and loud.
Yeah.
And that's only because we both have sensory perception issues.
Yeah.
So muffled sound is one of those things that both of us notice immediately.
Yeah, when the music is too loud and we can't actually hear the dialogue.
The music's too loud, or the sound, because the speakers are old or whatever, just gets kind of muffled, so it's really difficult to tell what people are saying because we're used to watching things at home with subtitles on them.
Yeah. I could, looking around the theater we were in, I could tell they were trying to update the acoustics.
Mm-hmm.
And the theater was very nice. All the people, the staff there was great.
It's really not the theater's fault, and it's really not the movie's fault. It's more on us.
Yeah, it's our sensory issues that made it difficult.
But that aside, there were little points in this one where I felt a little odd, because it was really jarring to me that there were like large points of this movie, at least in the beginning, you really notice it, where there's no soundtrack.
Yeah. It's just ambient.
Just quiet. It's just ambient noise. It's just the conversation, and it's really odd because the first movie did not do that. I do not remember that. Or the parts that did that, it was very pointed to have it silent, kind of like the end of this one. I understood why there wasn't music at the end of it. Fully understand that, because it is supposed to be somber. You don't really want to put swelling music over the top of these moments.
No.
Fine. The beginning of it, though, was a little jarring to me, because there were points where I'm like, why is there no sound here? And I was like, at some points I was like, is this because the theater doesn't have like surround sound or something? Are we missing like an audio track? No. It's just because parts of the movie straight up just didn't have, like, score behind it, and I don't quite understand what that decision was, but the music that was there, loved it. The music that was in both movies, loved them.
I think I might be more partial to the music from the Orient Express, just because in that, like, final climax scene where the big reveal is, you have that piano music, and it was that, I think that really helped.
Well, and it leads right into Michelle Pfeiffer's song over the credits, which is just upsetting as hell.
It is.
Continues to sob. No, there was this one point I did notice when they get on the boat, and they are playing, like, some score in the background when they get on the boat. It's not quite toward the beginning, because it takes us a little while to get to the boat.
Yeah.
But when they finally get on the boat and they're showing you all the tracking shots of the boat or whatever, there's like this specific sting in the soundtrack that is perfectly timed with like the staff on the boat and how they move.
Yeah.
And it was so good. It was like we were watching like the changing of the guard, and like they turned right as you got like the sting and the music, and I'm like, oh my god, it's so good. And it made up for the weird beginning where I was like, why is there no music right now? This is so weird.
Why is there silence?
Why is there silence? This isn't a somber moment. But other than that, like, I had zero issues with it. And parts of it, when it did sync up extremely well, it synced up extremely well, and it made up for it.
And you can thank the editor and the sound mixer for that, I think.
Mm-hmm. Gorgeous.
They know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. At least for the most part.
At least for the most part. Aside from the couple moments in this movie where it just doesn't quite work. And it's just not quite as good as Murder on the Orient Express. It's still good.
Yeah, it's still good. It's still a movie that I would, recommend seeing, especially if you're an Agatha Christie fan.
Mm-hmm. How would you rate it out of 5?
I think 4 out of 5.
How would you rate Murder on the Orient Express?
A 5, honestly.
5?
I really didn't expect to like that movie as much as I did, but honestly, I really liked it. Because he got the whole train right. He got all those beautiful tracking shots. The cast was amazing.
I'm still in love with the visuals and everything. I want to die.
The emotional climax just landed so
sad.
perfectly. And Death on the Nile, again, the boat was amazing.
The boat was stunning. The tracking shots, I'm still dying.
Yes, the tracking shots
the opening part of the movie, like, in black and white, that opening part,
I think the tracking shots...
perfect.
The tracking shots in this were way more ambitious.
Oh my god, they were so good!
And they were very good. The camera work was very good. The colors were gorgeous.
I'm so happy to see color in movies again.
The costumes were amazing.
Aside from his work on cats.
Yes. Aside from cats and their buttholes, yes. Yes. But I also really liked the cast on this one. But it didn't... I think it was just because it was a different story with a different emotional impact.
Mm-hmm. Again, there are some characters I wish we'd seen a little bit more from.
Yeah. And
I feel like Rose Leslie's character suffered as a result of that in particular.
Yeah, she got done the dirtiest, I think.
A little bit. But other than that, like, I think I'm inclined to agree with you.
Yeah.
Because the first one was actually, I might rate... No, it's still 5. It's perfect, because I just sat and sobbed through the end of it.
Yes.
Yeah. It was great. I had no complaints about the first one at all.
But Death on the Nile is still very much
Oh yeah, it was
watching.
still great. It was still great.
It just
has little awkward moments here and there.
It's got some awkward moments. It's got probably some sound issues.
Which might sound better in a bigger theater.
But honestly, I think it's probably just due to the story itself. Movies are subjective. Some people may love the story Death on the Nile way more than Murder on the Orient Express. Mm-hmm. So depending on how it hits you, you may like it way more than the previous one. Or you may like it okay and like the other one better. It really just depends on you. And if you're a fan of Death on the Nile in general, I definitely recommend seeing it because it's very well made. It's very well crafted.
Yeah, and I wouldn't buy into...
all these people going, oh, we made, another Agatha Christie movie. I'm like, guys, he's literally just made 2.
Yeah, I definitely read a review where it's like, it's his umpteenth Agatha Christie movie, and I'm like, this is literally only the second one he's made. Like, if you're bored by them, that's okay. That's valid. It's not for you. That's okay. I fully understand.
No, you're factually wrong. I want Agatha Christie Cinematic Universe. Fuck you. That's what I say.
But I get it. Like, not everything is for everybody.
You're confusing it with the fact that he's made an assload of Shakespeare adaptations, not Agatha Christie movies. Do your research, please.
It's randos on Twitter. Huh?
Yeah, randos on Twitter. Do your research.
You're not going to win arguments on Twitter.
I know. Well, that's why I'm not on Twitter. I ain't got time for it.
But, it was, okay, maybe they're boring to you, but that does not mean it's bad.
No.
Just means you didn't like it.
And I am perfectly capable of watching movies and making my own decision on whether I like them or not.
Yes.
And that's what I think other people should do, too. If you're even remotely interested, go watch it for yourself. You know?
And this is why we have different ratings on stuff that we watch literally together.
Yeah, go watch it if you're even a little interested. Form your own opinion on it. See if you like it or not for yourself. Don't just listen to other people, even though our opinion is probably more right.
We are always right.
That you are incorrect.
That is incorrect. But that's what we had to say about Death on the Nile. We tried to keep this fairly spoiler-free because I know there are some people like me who don't know anything about it, and then you go into it, and I don't want to ruin that surprise.
Yeah.
So, thank you for listening to this special episode of FANSPLAINED. If you enjoy what we do, consider donating on Ko-fi. Everything we make goes right back into the production quality of the show. We appreciate all of our subscribers and everything you do, and we're thankful for anything from Hulk smashing that like button to your questions and comments on each episode, and especially sharing the show with your friends. FANSPLAINED is a weekly media criticism pod and deep dive podcast. And we are currently still working our way through the chronological order of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We are still addressing our regularly scheduled episode later this week with the Incredible Hulk and the Consultant one-shot. We just wanted to do this because we had the screening opportunity, and we just wanted to come home and talk about it. You can find our updates here on YouTube, as well as on Twitter and Ko-fi at FANSPLAINED. If you want more of our conversations on the MCU and other fandoms, you can subscribe to our channel and hit the bell for new episode notifications. Until next time, Salt Shakers, this has been Ryan
and Em
with the FANSPLAINED podcast, and we'll see you next week.